The phone buzzed on the marble counter like a guilty heartbeat, and I froze. Emma Reed said, "Mark, your phone is vibrating again." He smiled too slow and reached too fast. A preview flashed. Lily said, "I don't think he'll ever find out." My breath snapped like glass. Mark Ellis said, "Spam, babe, ignore it." The lie tasted metallic in the air. I tapped the screen before he could block me. A thread opened like a wound. Photos blurred under my shaking thumb. Mark whispered, "Emma, don't." The room shrank around us, tight as a fist. The fridge hummed like a witness. My palm met his cheek before I knew I had moved. The slap cracked the kitchen's calm, and then silence rolled in. He touched his face as if it belonged to someone else. Emma Reed said, "Who is Lily, Mark?" He blinked, searching for a door that wasn't there. The clock stuttered through one hard second and another. My world tilted and spilled. Mark Ellis said, "You're overreacting." The words scraped me raw. My trust tore along a seam I had ignored. I tasted salt and old hopes. The text kept glowing in my hand like a flare. Everything I loved felt suddenly flammable. The storm pushed against the windows while my heartbeat counted losses. Emma Reed said, "Tell me the truth and make it fast." Mark stared at the island like it could speak for him. He tried to laugh, and it broke in his throat. Mark Ellis said, "There's nothing to tell." The lie landed with a dull thud. I remembered Sundays we built together, the grocery lists, and quiet drives. Emma Reed said, "I saw her name." He rubbed the reddening cheek, eyes flicking toward the door like an exit might appear. The house held our photos, and each frame felt heavier. I heard the rattle of Mia's crayons down the hall, and my chest shivered. Mark Ellis said, "Don't wake her." He wanted control back like a fallen crown. I wanted oxygen. The clock ticked like a metronome for grief. My faith bent at the center. Emma Reed said, "If I dig, what will I find?" He fell silent, and the silence answered for him. I opened the junk drawer with the old phone bills like I was pulling a pin. Emma Reed said, 3 weeks of late nights and dead batteries. He shifted, and a guilt draft moved through the room. Mark Ellis said, "Work is chaos." The word echoed and rang hollow. I laid the paper trail between us like stepping stones to a cliff. A number labeled Lily had multiplied like mold. Emma Reed said, "You taught me to spot patterns." He stared at the bills and then at me and chose the floor. The house creaked, adjusting to the weight of this new shape. My hands were steady, which scared me more than shaking would. Mark Ellis said, "You're twisting this." The storm thumped the siding as if to object. I felt the seam of my life fray another inch. Emma Reed said, "Then straighten it." He paced a short loop that carved new grooves into old tile. Mark Ellis said, "We were just talking." The phrase tried to shrink the damage and failed. Emma Reed said, "Talking with hotel keys and midnight drives." His shoulders sagged and the storm pressed harder. The scent of rain and lemon cleaner mixed into a memory I would never keep. I thought of vows spoken in spring light. Emma Reed said, "You let me carry our future while you emptied it." He flinched like the words had weight. Mark Ellis said, "I messed up, okay." The admission was small and late. Thunder rolled a slow verdict. My name felt too heavy in his mouth now. Emma Reed said, "Say hers." He didn't. The clock kept time for the collapse. I picked up the phone and set it between us like a judge. Emma Reed said, "If I call her, will she answer you by name?" He opened his mouth, and nothing useful came out. The storm softened, as if to listen. Mark Ellis said, "Please, don't do this." The plea felt practiced. I wanted a truth that did not limp. Emma Reed said, "One call." His eyes begged for a past we could not re-enter. The kitchen light buzzed, and somewhere a pipe knocked. I thought of Mia sleeping, and how tomorrow would redraw her world. Mark Ellis said, "Emma, I love you. The words sounded like counterfeit bills. I pressed the contact and let it ring. The future rang with it. The call rang into a soft void, and I heard my name inside the static of my breath. Emma Reed said, "Voicemail is safer than truth, right?" Mark stared at the floor like it might open and spare him. The ring died, and the silence sat between us with folded arms. I set the phone down like a blade that had already drawn blood. Emma Reed said, "I have loved you longer than my doubts." He blinked, and I saw the man I met in a bookstore aisle, sunlight on spines and patience in his hands. That warm memory felt far away and unfairly bright against the storm. I built a life on that light. Emma Reed said, "I learned your coffee order and your bad jokes before your tells." He rubbed his eyes, and the red mark on his cheek glowed like a warning I ignored. I wanted to bargain, but the price kept rising. I thought of how I tuck Mia in, how I whisper the good parts of the day until her breath evens. Emma Reed said, "I don't know how to tell her the world shifted." He swallowed and reached for my wrist, and I watched my own hand refuse him. The refusal surprised me more than the slap. My heart wanted him near. My spine wanted him gone. Emma Reed said, "Say something real." He breathed in, but honesty did not arrive with the air. I folded around the ache and felt myself, dented but still mine. We met on a Wednesday that smelled like rain and old paper, and he recommended a novel that made me cry on the bus. Emma Reed said, "You stitched yourself into my ordinary until it felt like silk." Mark Ellis said, "I wanted to make you laugh every day." We learned each other by inches, by favorite streets and mugs, by the way he folded receipts like tiny birds. When rent was tight, he cooked pasta with garlic and bravado and promised better years. Emma Reed said, "I married you because your quiet matched my quiet." Our wedding was small, and my father danced like a shy bear. Later, Mia arrived like a sunrise that refused to end. Nights were diapers and lullabies and the soft glow of cartoons at dawn. I kept lists taped inside cabinets to keep the chaos kind. Mark counted tiny socks and said we were rich. The story felt simple then, a map we could read in the dark. Emma Reed said, "I believed we were good because we kept choosing each other." I held that faith like a lantern even when his hours grew strange. I told myself, love is elastic. I told myself storms pass. I told myself he would turn back before the road forgot our door. After Mia's bedtime, I walked the hall like a guard who loves both the prisoner and the keys. Emma Reed said, "I forgive too fast and ask too little." The mirror above the console watched without pity. My flaws arranged themselves like magnets on the fridge, each one pulling the next. I am loyal to a fault, and I mistake silence for peace. I smooth every rough edge until the floor is slippery. Emma Reed said, "I stayed because the best days were holy." Mark Ellis said those days would return after this deadline, after this quarter, after this promotion. The word after built a scaffolding that never became a house. I wore hope like perfume until it faded into skin. I stopped noticing the odor of waiting. Emma Reed said, "If I had named my fear sooner, would he have stayed? Maybe naming it would only have taught me how to live with it." I tucked Mia's blanket tighter and whispered a story where the heroes kept their promises. Down the hall, the kitchen clicked and cooled and held a man I used to know. Emma Reed said, "I am not naive. I am tired of being brave for both of us." The thought startled me with its steadiness. I stepped onto the porch to breathe air that did not remember our kitchen. The rain had thinned to a hush on hedges, and the street glowed like a damp ribbon. I called Nora Blake because she knows the sound my voice makes when I am pretending. Emma Reed said, "He says it is nothing, and my bones say it is everything." Nora Blake said, "Do you want the truth or the calm?" I pressed the phone hard enough to feel its corners. I wanted both, and knew I could have neither. Emma Reed said, "Tell me I am not making this up." She went quiet in the way of friends who choose honesty over comfort. Nora Blake said, "You loved him well, and that matters, but love is not proof." The wind lifted wet leaves across the driveway. Emma Reed said, "I thought I built a home." Nora Blake said, "You did, but he chose to walk through someone else's door." I bit the inside of my cheek until the taste of iron told me I was still here. Nora's voice cracked softer. "I'll hold you if you fall." Emma Reed said, "I might already be falling." I sat at the dining table, old wood scarred by years of family dinners and birthday candles. Emma Reed said, "I kept the receipts of every hope." Mark Ellis lingered in the doorway, shoulders bent like he was too tall for this life. He said nothing, which was worse than lies. I thought of Mia's drawings taped on the fridge, stick figures holding hands under crooked suns. Emma Reed said, "She draws us as whole, even now." He shifted, guilty as a boy caught stealing. The silence weighed heavier than anger. Emma Reed said, "If you leave me empty, at least leave her whole." His jaw flexed, but his mouth refused shape. My heart thudded uneven, a drummer who lost the beat. I traced the groove of the table where Mia once carved her name with a spoon. Emma Reed said, "I will not let her grow up thinking this is love." The words startled me with their fire. Mark leaned on the frame like gravity doubled. He wanted to step forward and couldn't. Emma Reed said, "If I have to choose, I will choose her." The words hung like verdicts, sharp as glass. The morning smelled of stale coffee and last night's silence. Emma Reed said, "You're awake but not here." Mark Ellis sat at the edge of the couch, tie loose, shirt wrinkled, staring at a muted television. His eyes avoided mine like I was fire. The routine we built felt like paper that had gotten wet, heavy, fragile, and easy to tear. Emma Reed said, "You didn't come to bed." He rubbed his jaw unshaven and muttered, "Work calls late." The words were thin, like tissue stretched across stone. The glow of the screen painted him sickly blue. I clutched my mug as if heat could steady me. Emma Reed said, "Lily's voice doesn't sound like work." His shoulders tightened, but his mouth stayed closed. The silence was a worse confession than words. The clock on the wall ticked like it wanted me to count every beat of betrayal. I swallowed the ache and told myself not to break before breakfast. Mark Ellis said, "You're imagining things." My pulse disagreed. My trust disagreed. Even the walls seemed to lean in to listen. I felt the day fracture before it began, and I knew suspicion had already taken root. I walked into the garage to grab laundry detergent, and instead found the smell of cologne that wasn't his. Emma Reed said, "You switched brands." My chest thudded like a drum. On the passenger seat of his car was a scarf I didn't own. It was soft pink and smelled faintly of roses. I held it like evidence from a crime scene. Mark Ellis said, "Don't touch that." His voice cracked at the edges, urgency too sharp. He snatched it and stuffed it into a grocery bag. Emma Reed said, "Whose is it?" His jaw shifted left then right, like he was chewing a lie before spitting it out. He muttered, "It's nothing, Emma." The words echoed like a dare. My hands shook, but my voice stayed steady. Emma Reed said, "Her perfume lives here now." The garage light flickered and hummed like an accomplice. He closed the car door harder than he meant to. I felt the whole structure tremble. My world narrowed to a single scarf that had no business existing. I had proof now, and it smelled like roses. At lunch, I sat across from Nora Blake, in a diner that smelled like bacon and burnt toast. Emma Reed said, "I found her perfume in my garage." Nora's eyes sharpened like glass catching sunlight. She stirred her coffee, the spoon tapping a nervous rhythm. Nora Blake said, "Do you want me to say what you already know?" My fork pushed eggs across the plate, but I couldn't taste a thing. Emma Reed said, "I keep hoping for a version of this story where I'm wrong." Nora shook her head softly. "He's writing a different story, Emma." Her words stung because they carried no malice, only pity. The clatter of dishes around us made the silence between us louder. I felt like a woman sitting in the ruins of a house everyone else already knew had burned. Emma Reed said, "I don't know how to breathe if he's not my heir." Nora reached across the table and caught my wrist. Then learn to breathe alone, she whispered. My throat closed. The waitress asked if we needed anything else. Emma said, just the bill. That evening I checked his phone when he showered. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped it. Emma Reed said, if I see it, I can't unsee it. The screen unlocked too easily. He had grown careless, or confident. The messages scrolled endless, her name repeated like a song I didn't request. Lily, I miss your voice. Lily, tonight was perfect. My vision blurred, but the words stayed sharp. Mark Ellis said from the bathroom, Emma, where's my towel? My chest froze, my thumb still on the glowing screen. I wanted to throw the phone into the sink and watch it drown. Instead, I placed it back as though it were a bomb. He stepped out, wrapped in steam, hair damp, smiling faintly. He didn't know the wreckage had shifted inside me. Emma Reed said, your phone buzzed again. He blinked once, then twice, calculating how much I knew. My face was calm, but my pulse screamed. I tasted iron in my mouth and realized I had bitten my tongue. I smiled back like I was sharpening a blade. The cracks widened with every excuse, and I counted them like tally marks on prison walls. Emma Reed said, how many late nights does it take to make a stranger? He poured whiskey at 10 p.m. like it was medicine. The glass sweated on the counter, amber catching the light like liquid lies. Mark Ellis said, I'm working harder than ever for us. His voice tried to sound tired but noble. I saw only distance. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching him swallow guilt disguised as liquor. Emma Reed said, you don't come home to us anymore, you come home to hide. His eyes flashed something close to anger. Or fear. He said nothing, and the silence slithered around us like smoke. I thought of Mia's school play next week and wondered if he would even show. Emma Reed said, your daughter deserves better than half a father. He set the glass down too hard, liquid sloshing over the rim. His jaw flexed, but words refused to come. I realized then the man I loved was slipping, and I wasn't sure I could catch him without shattering myself. The rain stopped, but the air still carried thunder. Emma Reed said, I can't keep living with half-truths. Mark Ellis sat at the table, shoulders hunched, whiskey glass sweating into a ring. His silence cut deeper than shouting would. I had his phone again, its glow spilling over my hand. Emma Reed said, I already know, I just need to hear you say it. His chest rose and fell like a man drowning in shallow water. He whispered, it's not serious. My laugh cracked sharp, a broken branch in quiet woods. Not serious. The messages said otherwise. The scarf said otherwise. My body, sleepless, said otherwise. Emma Reed said, you built a second life and called it casual. He looked at me, eyes dark with something closer to shame than love. I tasted the words I never wanted to form. It's Lily, isn't it? He froze, and that silence told me everything. My world tilted, and I gripped the table to keep from falling. The next day I followed him, my heart punching ribs with each mile. Emma Reed said, if truth won't come to me, I'll chase it. His car slid into a quiet street, lined with brick townhouses. I parked far enough to watch shadows. He stepped out, adjusting his tie, glancing around like a thief. Then Lily appeared, younger than me, silk blouse clinging to the damp air. She touched his arm like it was hers. My stomach folded in on itself. Emma Reed said, he saves his laughter for her now. I watched him smile, wide and unburdened, a smile I hadn't seen in months. It felt like watching a ghost of my own life. They walked into the townhouse, door closing soft but final. I sat frozen, nails digging crescents into the steering wheel. The truth wasn't abstract anymore. It had an address, a front door, and her perfume in the air. Hours later I scrolled through the messages again, every word carving me hollow. Emma Reed said, she calls him hers. Photos bled across the screen, dinners, hotel rooms, a bedspread I didn't recognize. He sent her songs we once called ours. The betrayal wasn't only flesh, it was memory theft. Mark Ellis had repainted our history and handed it to her like a gift. Emma Reed said, "He rewrote me out of my own life." My hands trembled, but my eyes stayed clear. The screen lit up with another message. "Tomorrow again?" My pulse hammered, but clarity cut through the wreckage. I wasn't imagining. I wasn't paranoid. I was betrayed in black and white pixels that glowed like neon lies. My reflection stared back from the glass, a woman I barely recognized. She looked strong and ruined at once. I confronted him with proof, the phone trembling in my grip. Emma Reed said, "Stop insulting me with silence." He reached for it, but I pulled back. The images burned between us. Mark Ellis said, "It's complicated." His words landed empty. Complicated was unpaid bills, not betrayal. My chest tightened, rage mixing with heartbreak. Emma Reed said, "She wears scarves that smell of roses. She laughs in your car. She owns the smile you stole from me." His jaw clenched, but his eyes flickered with admission. The denial was gone, replaced by a grim surrender. He whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed bitterly, "But you did, and you kept doing it." My voice shook the walls more than thunder ever could. For the first time, he didn't fight back. He simply sat down, heavy, defeated, a man crumbling under his own choices. That night I sat in Mia's room, watching her chest rise and fall in steady peace. Emma Reed said, "You deserve a father who doesn't fracture your home." My fingers brushed her hair, soft as forgiveness I couldn't give. The night light painted stars on the ceiling. A sky kinder than ours. Down the hall, silence clung to him like a punishment. I realized betrayal wasn't only about him and me. It was a ripple crashing into every corner of this house. Emma Reed said, "He broke something sacred, but I will not let it break you." My tears fell onto her blanket, tiny wet marks, disappearing into cotton. I whispered, "You are my anchor." She stirred and sighed, curling deeper into dreams. My heart split but steadied. The secrets were uncovered. The lies were dead. But the scars had only begun to breathe. The truth sharpened when I least expected it. Emma Reed said, "I'll find answers where you won't give them." I drove to Lily Hayes' townhouse, fury my only compass. The blinds glowed with warm light, laughter spilling faint through the walls. I climbed the steps, heart pounding like war drums. The door cracked open, and there she stood, her smile fading as she saw me. She wasn't just the affair partner. She was someone I knew. My chest collapsed when recognition hit. Emma Reed said, "Lily." Her voice shook like glass on edge. Lily Hayes was my oldest friend, the one who held my bouquet at the wedding, who promised to protect my happiness. My knees weakened under the weight of betrayal, heavier now than any lie Mark ever spoke. Her voice faltered, but it carried enough. Lily Hayes said, "Emma, I can explain." My stomach twisted at the sound, familiar and foreign at once. Emma Reed said, "You were my sister in everything but blood." Her eyes shimmered, not with guilt, but with fear. Mark Ellis's shadow appeared behind her, adjusting his shirt like a man caught in the wrong room. I felt air rush from me. Two betrayals stacked like daggers in my ribs. Emma Reed said, "You both chose this." Lily stammered, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." My laugh scraped raw. Not supposed to? It had gone as far as shattering the only friendships that mattered. My body screamed to run, but my pride anchored me. I wanted them to see the ruin they made. I stepped inside uninvited, the floor creaking under a weight it didn't ask for. Emma Reed said, "How long?" My voice was steel, despite the tremor beneath. Mark Ellis shifted, jaw tense, but Lily spoke first. Lily Hayes said, "Almost a year." The number cracked through me like thunder splitting a tree. Every birthday, every dinner, every laugh, it all carried her fingerprints. Emma Reed said, "While I confided in you, you were stealing what I trusted." Lily's eyes dropped. shame staining her face, but shame was too light for this sin. Mark Ellis muttered, "It just happened." My fury surged. Emma Reed said, "Affairs don't just happen. Lies take planning." My voice echoed off the bare walls, louder than I had ever heard myself before. The betrayal sharpened further when I noticed a framed photo on Lily's shelf. It wasn't just them, it was us. A picture from my wedding, her smiling at me, hand clutching my bouquet. The irony burned hotter than fire. Emma Reed said, "You toasted our vows while you prepared to break them." Lily's lip trembled, words trapped. Mark Ellis finally met my eyes. No charm left, only the hollow look of a man who gambled everything and lost. Emma Reed said, "You didn't just cheat on me. You erased me." The words tasted like ashes. The room spun with memories of late nights, whispered promises, and all the times she said she loved me like a sister. Betrayal had a face, and it wore Lily's. I turned for the door, each step heavy, each breath shaking. Emma Reed said, "You took my husband, you took my trust, but you don't get to take me." Mark Ellis reached out, but his hand hovered, never daring to touch. Lily Hayes whispered, "Emma, please." The plea landed like shattered glass, too late to fix anything. My spine straightened with a strength I hadn't felt in weeks. Emma Reed said, "You don't get to speak my name anymore." Their faces blurred as tears swelled, but I didn't wipe them. They deserved to see them fall. Outside, the air hit cold and sharp, cleaner than it had in months. My chest heaved, but my steps didn't falter. The reveal was complete, and the wreckage was theirs to choke on. The house felt heavier than stone when I returned. Emma Reed said, "We're not bearing this under silence anymore." Mark Ellis sat on the couch, whiskey glass empty, tie discarded like a confession. His eyes were bloodshot, but not from honesty. I stood across from him, every inch of space between us charged like live wire. Emma Reed said, "You betrayed me with her, and you betrayed me with lies." He swallowed, Adam's apple jerking, but his voice scraped out anyway. Mark Ellis said, "I never stopped loving you." The words were poison disguised as medicine. My chest rose sharp with rage. Emma Reed said, "Love that hides in someone else's bed is not love. It's cowardice." His hands spread helpless, but guilt clung to them like tar. For the first time I wasn't pleading. I was striking, not with fists, but with truth. His jaw tightened, anger sparking, but his words crumbled. Mark Ellis said, "It wasn't just about her. It was about me." My laugh broke like glass shattering. Emma Reed said, "Your selfishness has a body count, and I'm the casualty." He rose to his feet, towering, but his shadow was longer than his strength. His fists clenched then fell open, a man unsure whether to fight or beg. Emma Reed said, "Do you even see Mia in all this? She will ask why her father lives in someone else's lies." His shoulders sagged, as if her name was the only weapon that could pierce him. He whispered, "I didn't want her to know." My voice cut sharper. Emma Reed said, "She already does. Children know when love rots." His eyes flicked away, unable to hold the truth. I hurled the phone onto the coffee table, the screen flashing Lily's name like an exposed nerve. Emma Reed said, "This is who you are now." He flinched as if the name itself struck him. Mark Ellis said, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." My voice climbed, no longer contained. Emma Reed said, "You let it go this far. You chose it over and over." The room vibrated with words I never thought I'd say. He whispered, "I'm sorry." The apology rang hollow, like a coin tossed into an empty well. Emma Reed said, "Sorry is for accidents. This was demolition." His shoulders folded, his body sinking, as if the air itself condemned him. For the first time I felt taller than the betrayal. The fight bled into silence, a silence more violent than words. Emma Reed said, "Every lie stripped me raw, until nothing was left but suspicion." He sank onto the couch, head in hands, muttering curses at himself. I stared down at the man I thought I married, realizing he wasn't lost. He was revealed. Emma Reed said, "I can't fix a man who breaks me for sport." His body shook, but his tears, if they came, were too late. My chest ached, but steadied. For the first time, I was not begging for truth. I was commanding it. Emma Reed said, "You don't get another chance to carve me hollow." The words echoed like thunder. He raised his head, eyes wet, but the weight of his ruin made them dull. The climax came not in screams, but in clarity. Emma Reed said, "You lost me tonight." The words fell calm, final, undeniable. He leaned forward as if to catch them, but they slid past, unreachable. His lips parted, but no excuse could crawl out. I turned, footsteps heavy, but each one carrying me closer to myself. At the doorway I paused, breath sharp. Emma Reed said, "Mia will know her mother stood, even when broken." His sob broke the silence, but I didn't look back. The doorframe framed me like an exit and a rebirth. My heart hammered. But for once, it wasn't from fear. It was from release. I walked away not healed, but unchained. The morning after felt like walking through ruins, familiar walls echoing with absence. Emma Reed said, "Every corner remembers." The kitchen still smelled of coffee, but his mug sat untouched, ring marks ghosting the counter. Mia padded in with sleepy eyes, clutching her toy rabbit. Emma Reed said, "Daddy left early." She blinked, too young to know the gravity. But her silence pierced me. I stirred cereal with a spoon, hands trembling. My chest ached with loss, but steadied with resolve. Emma Reed said, "This house is smaller now, but safer." Each word felt like scaffolding for a life that had to hold, even if patched with scars. Later, I packed his shirts into boxes, cotton collapsing like old promises. Emma Reed said, "Every fold feels like burial." Thus it smelled of him. Soap, cologne, late nights. My hands shook but still moved. Mechanical, relentless. Each shirt carried a memory. His first job interview, our trip to the coast, Maya's school recital. Emma Reed said he abandoned us long before this box. And you ended. I stacked them carefully, though rage begged me to tear them apart. The silence of the closet felt like final rites. When the last hanger clanged empty, I whispered, "I'm not empty with it." The air exhaled with me, as if the house agreed. By afternoon I sat across from Nora Blake, the diner hum grounding me. Emma Reed said, "It's done." Her hand covered mine, anchoring. Nora Blake said, "Then you begin again." The words were steady, not sharp, and they landed like balm. I sipped coffee that tasted bitter yet cleansing. Emma Reed said, "I thought I would collapse without him." Nora shook her head, eyes fierce. "You stood taller than both of them." My lips trembled into a half smile I didn't expect. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders loosened, breath filling me without pain. The betrayal still bled, but strength began to scab over. Emma Reed said, "I'm not healed, but I'm here." Nora squeezed tighter. "And here's enough." That evening I read Mia a story, her small fingers tracing the pictures. Emma Reed said, "Once upon a time, heroes kept their promises." Her eyes shone, unknowing but safe. She leaned against me, hair smelling of shampoo and crayons. My chest ached at the thought of her innocence surviving what mine could not. I tucked the blanket under her chin and whispered, "You are my forever." Her breathing slowed, deep and even. The rhythm of trust. I watched her long after she fell asleep, the nightlight casting stars on the ceiling. Emma Reed said, "I will carry us through this storm." And for the first time, I believed myself. The final night, I stood at the doorway, silence filling the house like a verdict. Emma Reed said, "You didn't think I'd ever find out, did you?" The words tasted final, even if he wasn't here to hear them. I closed my eyes and let the quiet settle, heavy yet liberating. The storm had passed but left scars across the walls of my heart. I wasn't healed, but I wasn't broken beyond repair. Emma Reed said, "This is the end of us, and the beginning of me." The words echoed in the hollow, filling it with something close to peace. I turned off the light, the click sharp, decisive. Darkness didn't scare me anymore.